So welcome everybody. Happy Thursday and happy Shivaratri. Today is celebration of Shivaratri. So what that means, right? It's dedication to Shiva, the energy or the character that dissolves everything. Also considered the cosmic dancer, the one that moves the world, right? That creates and sustains and dissolves this whole embodied experience and is a representation of the wholeness or the spiritual self that exists within this embodiment, but is never impacted by it, right? So it's all of the energy of life and living and all of that, but it's also the steadiness, the stillness of the spiritual self that is within. So tonight is the night that Shivaratri is traditional that we stay up all night, right? Shiva takes the break for one night and we're asked to stay up to keep the world moving, right? From that inner space, not from the outer space. So today's class is, the pose for today is actually Agnistambhasana. I know you were all prepared for it to be dancer pose. Nope. Agnistambhasana, fire log pose. Sometimes we call it double pigeon, right? Where the shins are crossed in front. The reason for this position today is that Agni, or the fire, ceremonial fire, is where we come back to clarity, right? So the Agni fire is what brings us to a clarity of what is beneath the surface of what we see in front of us. It's the place where we go to the devoted aspect of ourselves, right? The sacrificial fire is where we make offerings to that divine aspect of the world. And Shiva is the energy that is always in the state of meditation. So I was thinking about trying to do a position that is considered a seated position for meditation, thought about lotus, thought about a lot of other things. But I like that fire log brings you to the place that is about staying steady in your seat, right? It is about pelvic opening and about the seat being steady. You could use it for meditation, but it's also the energy that when Shiva is dancing is surrounding him, the energy of fire. He dances in a ring of fire. Right? So there's this transformative aspect of it that you're seated in Agnistambhasana, but it's a pose that is meant to awaken that inner transformative power, that inner transformative energy. So the celebration is to be able to do both, to be in the world, but not to be confused by the world, right? Agnistambhasana, sacrificial fire, or just simply the fire logs, right? What is being burnt, or what is the fuel for this transformative process of your life, right? So comfortable seat if you're not there already. Let the eyes close for a moment. And can you feel yourself as all of the bits and pieces that you are? You can identify this is my ankle or my knee or my hip or my thigh, my back, my mind, my thoughts. And can you leave all of that as it is, but then perceive the space that is around it? And the actual energy that is cohesive, that pulls all of those pieces together. So no matter how separate they feel, they can't ever pull completely away. They're connected. So transformation is like being in that space in between. It's not any individual piece, but it's the fluidity, the moving between them, among them, through them. This is embodiment too. That the energy of the soul is not stuck static in this position, this body and this mind, but it's moving through it. It's enlivening it. The transformation, the Agni, is the energy that enlivens. And Shiva is being in that state of being completely immersed in that energy that enlivens. So even if that makes no sense, just sit for a moment with everything exactly as it is. And know that you are connected to every other particle of creation. And then one more deep breath in. As you exhale, drop into your seat. So relax into the pelvis, feel the heaviness, and then bring the hands together in front of the heart center, palm to palm. We'll open with the sound of Om. Deep breath in. Om. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. Stay seated. Please take your hands to your knees, your thighs, and start to cat-cow your spine. Seated cat-cow. Rocking forward and back on your pelvis. So the idea by doing this seated is that you get into this kind of sort of clear feeling of being able to rock forward and back on the pelvic bones. Good. Because this is really where deep hip opening starts to happen. It's not in just how you can rotate your leg. It's literally in the way that you're able to move your pelvis. So if your pelvis is able to tilt forward and back freely, then there's going to be enough space. There's going to be a lot of space for the thigh bone to do its rotation in the hip socket. Good. The pelvis is tight, then it's going to restrict the way the legs are able to rotate. And fire log is like doing pigeon with both legs at the same time. Sounds really exciting. So there's a lot in this position that is easy to get agitated by. Another reason why I'm choosing it is because to stay in that state that is always steady, right? That's the Shiva energy. We say Om Namah Shivaya. A mantra says, I am bowing to, I'm turning my attention to the part of me that is always in equanimity, that's really always okay with whatever is going on. Not necessarily comfortable, but okay. Good. Nice, you guys. And then come back to stillness, please. If you're in a cross-legged seat, stay there. Flex your feet, and then just let yourself forward into a forward fold over the crossed legs. Good. Make sure you flex your feet a lot. Good. Keep flexing your feet. Yep. As you flex your feet, press back through your sit bones. So try and push your butt away. Good. As you push your butt away, let your chest lean forward a little more. Good. And then can you relax into your lower back again? You get heavy through your pelvis. Nice. And then walk yourself all the way back up. Nice job. Good. Take your feet out in front of you. Good. Scoot forward on your mat a little bit if you'd like. So you come more towards the front of your mat, knees bent. Plant your feet as wide as your mat. Then fingertips can rest behind you and start to let your knees rock from side to side like windshield wipers, but feet are separated. Good. Nice. Yeah, let them go as far as they can go. So don't try and stop the movement, but let them go as deep as they can go. So you're letting yourself rock from side to side again, freeing up sort of range of motion, outer hips. Nice. There you go, Emily. Good. And then the next time your knees drop to the right, leave them there and start to walk your torso around same direction. So you're walking around to the right until your shoulders, your chest are facing the back of your mat. So you're facing the back of your mat, belly turning towards the floor. You can come down onto your forearms here. If you have a bolster really handy and you want to put that underneath your side body, you can do that. But hanging out on your forearms is perfect. Good. If you can come all the way down onto the belly or onto the chest, that's also an option. Good, but I want you to continue to feel that the feet are separated so you get that long line through the outer ribs down into the outer hip. Good. Nice, you guys. Fire log functions, or the fire log pose works by having a really open lower back. Right? All of the seated meditation poses are kind of cemented on that foundation, right? They're designed for that foundation, that your back, your lower back can feel really open so that you can sit upright. Right? And we say that in those earliest days of, many lineages, this was the whole point of doing asana, was just to get your back and your hips to a position where you could sit in stillness. And go into meditation, and meditation being that offering again to that internal transformation of what feels like it's very mundane or very ordinary or very boring becomes something very sacred and special because you realize that it's your soul that's enlivening it. Right? So washing dishes becomes a sacred act because it's your soul washing dishes. Becomes a big deal just to see the sunrise because it's in the moment that it's happening, it's the first and only time that you're going to see the sunrise the way that it is. It's never going to repeat itself. So the transformation that happens inside through meditation is that we start to become clear. And when we look at everything as an act of the soul, my soul, your soul, everyone's souls, and this ordinary world becomes something that's very special. We treat it better. We treat ourselves better. It's easier to stay in equanimity. Take one more breath on this side. And then walk yourself back up, come back to center. So you're facing the front of your mat with your knees bent, feet flat to the floor, as wide as your mat. And then again, let your knees begin to move from side to side, windshield wiper. Good. So even the stretches that go into really working with the big muscles of the legs and the hips, because those muscles are so big, you're dealing with bones that are very big, is that you have to hang out in them for a period of time for them to be really effective. So you start to slow down by preparing to do hip opening. Good. Next time your knees drop to the left, keep them there. And then walk yourself around same direction so that you come to face the back of your mat. Again, coming down onto the forearms. Try and keep your feet separated. If you need to place something underneath the back knee, you can place a blanket there or a block. Good. So another thing, right, is that the angle of the knee to the hip, if this is a joint that is tight for you or a place that is a challenge for you, is that propping that knee up is always going to feel like it relieves some of that pressure because it gives a more neutral angle. The bone is no longer getting kind of compressed into the joint, or the joint is not getting compressed because the bones are pressing against each other. So when you're doing really deep hip work, or you're doing a pose like Agnistambhasana or any of the seated meditation postures, whether it's lotus or Siddhasana or any of the others, use props. Because the idea is not to force yourself into a position that you think is better than another one. The idea is to find what allows you to come to that still, steady place inside. And part of our practice is learning how to treat ourselves. And Shiva as a character is someone who he knows exactly who he is, and he never wavers from that. Doesn't apologize for it. Doesn't participate in what he sees no value in participating in. So we're practicing this idea of the inner transformation where we come to that deep understanding of who we are. And remaining in equanimity even when the outside world or even our own body is giving us aggravation. There is no quick way. You have to breathe through this moment as it is. And that's what we learn in Agnistambhasana, is that there's a process. Transformation is a process and it's ongoing. But the fuel for that process, right? What do you feed that fire with? Your own emotions, your own thoughts, your own desire to experience the soul that you are. So we sometimes say to offer the whole embodiment, your body, your mind, into that sacrificial fire so it can become whatever its most clarified and true form is. You wake up to that. One more breath on this side. And then start to walk yourself back up again. So you face the front of your mat. Good. Stay seated, hands behind you, feet as wide as your mat, but come up on your heels. So you lift your feet up off the floor, toes up off the floor, and drag back. So lean forward a little bit more. So it's like you're in a seated squat. So your feet are as wide as your mat. Yep. Heels digging down and back. Good. Hands can come in front of you here if you can. So hands inside the feet in front of you. Good. Start to walk yourself forward just a little bit. As you walk forward, good. Yeah, hug those inner knees in just a little bit. Push your butt back. walk your hands forward. Good. And then squeeze those inner knees again and try and push your sit bones back and wide. Nice. And then bring your right arm inside your right shin or your right knee. Plant that hand. Take your left arm up to the sky. Twist. Good. You got it. And then release and come back down. Try the other side. Left hand inside the left shin or the left knee. Right arm up to the sky. Good. So you're watching as you twist that the right leg is not going into a state of doing nothing, as you're keeping both of those legs active, digging the heels down, pressing your sit bones back and wide. Open the chest. Nice. And then release that hand down to the floor. Nice job. Good, you guys. Bring the bottoms of the feet together. Please let your knees drop wide. Badakanasana. You can place a blanket back underneath your seat here if you need. Good. And then move your feet forward just a little bit more than you usually might. So you get a little bit of a longer diamond for your Badakanasana. And then start to bow forward here. You can place a block on top of your feet if you want to rest your forehead on the block. Optional is to thread the arms, right arm underneath right knee, left arm underneath left knee, if you'd like. Good. And letting yourself drop into the forward fold. You can round your back here if you'd like. Again, use props. So a prop underneath your head can feel really nice. Good. If having the arms underneath the knees feels too restrictive, then keep them forward. Good. The idea is, again, you're giving yourself the opportunity to stay in the position long enough for something to happen. Good. You don't have to know when it happens, or it doesn't have to be dramatic, but you have to stay long enough for the joints to start to relax in this position. And this is a big part of our concept of equanimity, is to find the place in us that is calm, because our minds are almost never calm, right? They're busy. And even when they approach being calm, we usually then find something else for them to be busy about. So we have to give time for something to occur, for transformation to work through. So you're practicing taking longer breaths. You're practicing feeling where the sensation is. How that sensation can be there. It's been there. That's the very funny thing that I think is that when we practice yoga, we're like, oh, practice yoga, I feel so tight. Well, you're tight already. You're tight all the time. Becoming aware of it is part of the process of changing it. So you start to become aware of how the body is tight, in what ways it's holding, and what way your mind is gripping. So keep relaxing here. And again, if relaxing feels impossible, use props. Make it possible. Good. We think of meditation sometimes as having to sit with our eyes closed, away from the world. But mindfulness meditation is really about being fully present in the world. At any given moment, being fully present in what you feel and how you feel it, those interconnected experiences, not just the pieces of how you feel, but how they are unified. You can't separate this sensation from that body part, or this body part from that thought, or that thought from this feeling, from this sensation. So all of it together, we start to realize that we're always part of a unified reality, oneness. And then maybe we relax because we realize we're not separate. You're not going it alone. One more breath here, soften a little bit more, a heavy seat. And then slowly unwind, come on out. Stretch your legs out in front of you, just as wide as your mat. So again, taking the heels as wide as your mat, but the legs are straight. Good. And take a forward fold, walk yourself forward, reaching the hands to your feet or your ankles or whatever part of the legs you can hold, but hold on to something. Good. Again, dig down through your heels so that there's this energy of your thighs pulling up and back into your pelvis. So it's like you're trying to pull your feet up into your pelvis. Good. As you lean forward, you pull back on your legs. You pull back on your sit bones. Good. And then holding on to something, start to cat-cow your spine. Nice. Good. You guys keep the heels anchored to the floor. Beautiful. Try to work still from the pelvis, even though you're in a seated position. Try and have that slight rocking forward and back on the pelvis as the spine moves. Because we have no idea, right, when we're in a chronically tight position physically, we have no idea what neutral is. We have no idea what equanimity is because we never stop to look at what's between the thoughts. We never stop to just be okay with what's happening. We're too invested in what's happening. So we practice this rocking forward and back so that we can start to determine what forward is, what backwards is, where is neutral. Good. Start to come back to stillness, please. Take one more inhale, lift and lengthen your spine. Good. And then exhale, bow a little deeper in, maybe pulling the elbows into a bent position to drag yourself in, maybe just rounding and letting yourself fall into the forward fold, maybe somewhere in between that. Good. And then walk yourself all the way back up. Nice. Bend your knees, cross the ankles, roll forward onto hands and knees. Nice. And find your way back to downward facing dog. Good. Take your right leg up and back behind you, down dog split. Nice. Bend the knee, kick your heel in towards your butt, stack the right hip on top of the left and make some circles with that knee. So start to move the leg in the hip socket. Good. Nice. Then lift and open, come back to stillness. And then keeping the knee lifted, pull your knee forward towards your right armpit. So your thigh is going to parallel the floor. It's going to be sticking straight out from your hip. Your knee is still lifted though. So it's still that dog peeing on a fire hydrant. Good. So you're lifting the inner thigh, pull the angle of the knee forward. So the thigh is parallel to the floor. Forward, forward, forward towards your armpit. All right. Come back to down dog split. Release that foot down to the floor. Drop your knees to the floor. Because that didn't make any sense to you. Okay, so from hands and knees, right? You've all heard of this thing called a fire hydrant, right? So from hands and knees, knees underneath the hips. So Lorraine, separate your knees a little bit more. You're gonna lift that right knee out to the side. So your thigh parallels the floor. Good, keep your knee and your shin in the same angle. Good, so from hands and knees, so if you can. Or is that your version of a fire hydrant? There you go. You got it, yep. Yeah, so you feel that, right? Good, release that. Come back to downward facing dog. Right leg up and back behind you. Bend your knee, stack your hip, and put that leg in that same position of that fire hydrant. So you pull it forward. Good, so you're changing the angle. That's it, so it's gotta come forward, parallel to the floor. It's gonna feel a lot harder in this position. I know, keep your hips up, Emily. Good, one more breath. I know, good. Take that leg straight up and back behind you, down dog split. Nice job. Take that right foot forward between the hands. Good. Into a lunge, Virginia. Looks like you're coming into pigeon. Both hands come inside the front foot, please. Yeah, so hands are still on the floor. Good. Walk yourself straight ahead, shoulder right inside that knee. So you're coming into lizard pose here. If you can come down onto your forearms, go for that. Good. Or place blocks underneath the elbows. Otherwise, stay up on your fingertips and just breathe really long into your spine. Keep pressing through that front heel. Don't let the knee come forward of the ankle. Good. So Virginia, you don't need to wrap the arm around the calf. If you like being in that position, that's fine, but you can just have both arms inside. There you go. Good. Always an option to have the back knee on the floor here, but I do want you to try and stay in that position where the knee is on top of the ankle. And even if the back knee is on the floor, you still have this feeling that you're lifting the pelvis a little higher. So you're not dropping it towards the floor, but you're actually pulling back on your pelvis. You're still trying to pull the hips back as you reach your spine forward. Press into that front heel. Good. Press into your front foot. Nice, you guys. Scoop your low belly a little bit. Good. One more breath. Lift and open the chest. Lift and lengthen the spine. Nice. And then exhale, release. Please walk back up onto the hands. Good. Lift that back knee if it's on the floor, and then step the left foot forward just a little bit. Take both legs to straight. Badakanasana. Use blocks underneath the hands here if you'd like. Good. So Lorraine, separate your feet wider, right and left. There you go. Sway your hips from side to side here, you guys. So before you just find yourself sticking in the position the way you always do, being stuck in it the way you always do. Sway from side to side. Good. And then find what feels like neutral to you, where you are drawing back on the top of your right thigh, right hip and thigh, drawing back, outer left hip is spinning slightly forward, and then feel like you are pushing both of your inner thighs away from each other. Good. So as though there's this imaginary kind of wall on the outside of each thigh, and you're trying to push your outer thighs into those walls. Good. Nice, you guys. Beautiful. Take one more breath here. And then you're starting to walk your hands towards the baby toe edge of that front foot. So start to walk towards the outer edge of the front foot. Again, you can bring your blocks with you. Optional here is to turn the feet as well. So to start to turn right and left toes towards the right. Good. So as you start to turn the toes here, you might feel a little bit more stretch on the outer edge of your right thigh. Good. Make sure you're not turning the toes excessively where your knees feel like they're twisted. So you're still trying to really push the inner thighs away from each other. Good. Press back through your seat so you're still keeping the legs really long. Nice. Walk yourself all the way back to center, please, turning the toes back towards the top of your mat. Awesome. And then step your left foot forward, both feet underneath the hips, standing forward fold. Good. Feet underneath the hips, bend your knees, take your hands to your outer knees or your outer thighs. Good. And press wide. Yep. So the hands are there pushing in, giving you, again, those solid walls. Push your knees wide, push your inner thighs wide. And then feel like you're actually pulling your butt cheeks wide. Yep. Good. So you got that little scoop of the pelvis, scoop of the belly, push wide. Nice. And then try and maintain that. Drop your head, start to straighten your legs, but keep pushing your inner knees wide, your inner thighs wide, your butt cheeks wide as your hips go to the sky. Good. Keep pushing wide, keep pushing wide, keep pushing wide. Nice. Beautiful, you guys. And then release the hands down to the floor, please. Good. Take your right hand to your left ankle, left arm to the sky. Good. Alternative, the hand could come to your lower back. That totally works too. Continue to push your inner thighs wide and push your butt up towards the sky. So again, all of these positions, that pushing wide is what helps really activate and use those muscles of the outer hip and thigh. So those muscles have to work in order for them to really let go, for them to get out of their chronic tightness. Release that hand down to the floor, go the other way. Left hand to outer right ankle, right arm to the sky. Good. And being in the standing position means that those legs really have to work against gravity. Where seated, we get maybe a little bit caught up in the roundness of our lower back. So here your pelvis has a little bit more space. Welcome back, Mark. Standing forward fold. Good. And then release that hand down to the floor. Nice job, you guys. Separate your feet as wide as your mat. Yep, toes still facing straight ahead. Bend your knees, drop your thighs parallel to the floor. Take your butt back behind your heels. Walk your hands forward into almost like a downward facing dog and cat-cow your spine. Drop your hips nice and low. Good. Yeah, don't apologize for some of you who were in class yesterday, and I ended up doing a lot of these same things because the request was to work on the piriformis. So, but it's good for you if your piriformis or your hips are one of your challenging places, is doing these things regularly. Very helpful, because again, the big muscles hold the patterns of our movement very strongly. They need time and repetition. It's like it said, meditation, the things that make it work is doing it regularly, consistently, for a long time, and with all enthusiasm. Good. Come back to stillness, please. Stretch those legs all the way to straight, pressing through the heels. Walk your hands back. Beautiful. And then heel your feet a little closer, please. Step yourself back to plank pose, upward push-up. Good. Lower down slow to your belly. Nice. Bend both knees. Kick your heels in towards your butt. Good. Reach back for your ankles if you can. If reaching the ankles is not happening today, keep your hands alongside your ribs for Cobra. But if you can reach for the ankles, reach for the ankles. Good. And then you're hugging the knees in, press your thighs down to the floor, and then bend your elbows coming up into frog, Badakanasana. Good. So bending the elbows, lifting the chest, keeping your thighs rooted to the floor. And again, if you're not reaching the ankles today, the hands are alongside your ribs in Cobra. Lift head, neck, and chest like you're in Cobra, but keep the knees bent and squeeze the heels in. So again, this is to get into that part of the pelvis, right, that attaches to the front of the legs, quad muscles. Good. So as hip flexors. Press down through those thighs, bend the elbows. Yeah. And then slowly release. Nice job. Take the feet back behind you. Plant the hands alongside the ribs. Good. Rise up for Cobra. Lift head, neck, and chest. Good. And then if you're in a straight arm Cobra, bend your elbows, drop a little bit lower into that position, and then let yourself twist from side to side, move from side to side. Good. Not specifically said this way in yoga, but the snake, right? Shiva is adorned with snakes. He wears cobras around him. So it's not specifically said in yoga that that's a symbol of transformation, but in many other cultures it is. Good. And then slowly release, come back down to your belly, please. Good. Press up to hands and knees and come back to child's pose. Good. The idea of fire, tapas, is one of the words that means heat. It's a literal translation, but we also use it to talk about the kind of discipline or dedication that's necessary for any real change to occur, to be sustained. So it's really about consistency, being able to stay steadfast, being able to stay concentrating in one direction for any length of time. It empowers you, but it can also agitate, can also irritate. So we're asked to get into that awareness of the discipline necessary to move beyond our chronic tightness, our chronic pain, our chronic confusion, but to stay in that state where we're okay with the fact that we're still confused, we're still tight, we're still whatever we are. That's equanimity. Walk yourself back up, please. Come back to downward facing dog. Okay, left leg up and back, down dog split. Good. Bend the knee, kick your heel in towards your butt, stack the left hip on top of the right, circle the knee. So start to make big hip circles by moving that knee. Good. I know there are easier positions to do hip circles in, but it's not the same. Good. And then lift and open. Yep. And then start to pull that knee forward into that fire hydrant position. So your thigh and your knee are in a straight line, straight out from the hip. So Sarah, you got to rotate your heel down towards the floor a little more. There you go. And now pull the knee forward again with the, yep, at the foot at that angle. Got it. Good. Hips higher, Emily. So you're still in down dog. Good, Sue. You got it. Nice, Mark. Pull that knee forward towards your armpit a little more. Towards your armpit. That's it. Good. And then release back to down dog split. Nice job, you guys. Good. Step the left foot between the hands, lunge. Both hands come inside the front foot, coming to the lizard on this side. So again, walking the hands straight forward. So you're not going much to that upper diagonal, not towards the upper right-hand corner, but straight forward. And then drop down to the elbows if you can. You can put blocks underneath the forearms if you need. Good. Or you can stay on your fingertips. And again, another option is to drop the back knee to the floor. But if you do, keep the hips slightly lifted and keep pulling back. So the idea is that left thigh crease When the hip or the lower back is tight, it's going to tend to rotate forward. So pull it back and in towards the midline. So it's still your back hip spinning forward. Good. Press into that front foot strong. Nice. Give a little hug of that front knee in, Joanne, just so that it's not going wide of the ankle. There you go. Good, you guys. And then again, you got to stay here long enough for something to happen. So relax. Good. And if you're thinking this whole concept of Shivaratri is like, oh, I have to stay up all night and do all this work. No, you're supposed to stay up all night and party, right? It's supposed to be this celebration of what unifies the world. And the fact that you play a part in that, you know, the God aspect can go to sleep and the world continues because you're here, because you're paying attention. So you keep the spirit of the world alive. The heart of the world beats in you. Soul of the world beats in you. Enlivens you. More breath. Sarah, watch that knee that doesn't go super wide. Good. And then walk yourself back in, please. Nice job. Come back up onto the hands. Lift the back knee if it's on the floor. And then step the right foot forward just a little bit. Take both legs to straight. Badakanasana. Good. Blocks underneath the hands if you need. Make sure your feet are as wide as your hips, right and left. Good. And then again, sway your hips from side to side, so that you can find the limits of rotation. You can find the limits of mobility. You can say, where is it that I start to feel the tightness, and where do I start to feel like that tightness lets go? And then try and find what feels like neutral to you, where the back hip, the right hip is spinning slightly forward. Good. Left low belly and thigh crease are pulling back and wide. So the thigh crease is literally where the thigh bone is up meeting into the bowl of the pelvis. That's where your pants crease, right? That's why we call it the thigh crease. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I mean that. Good. You can even feel this. Maybe take your left hand up to the top of your left thigh. This should be your front leg, and hook your thumb into that little crease, into that indentation there between your thigh and the front of your pelvis, and pull back. Use your own effort to pull that back towards the back of your mat. Good. And then start to walk your hands. You can release that if you have your thumb in there. Walk your hands towards the baby toe edge of your front foot. So walking to the left. And optional is start to turn the feet as well to the left, both feet. So don't just move one and not the other. Good. And that turning, pushing the inner thighs away from each other. Good. Gives you maybe a little bit more length, a little bit more stretch on the outer edge of the leg, outer edge of the hip. Good. If you just feel like it's pulling into your knees, then go back towards straight ahead. Good. Keep your low belly engaged. Push those inner thighs away from each other. Nice. And then walk yourself back to center, please. Toes facing straight ahead. Good. Then step that right foot forward alongside the left, standing forward fold. Beautiful. Good. Bend the knees again. Take your hands to your outer knees or thighs. So you have something to push into. So push your hands in towards the knees, and then push your knees and your inner thighs wide into your hands. Good. And start to drop the head, please, straightening the legs, coming into forward fold there. So you're pressing wide, pressing wide, pressing wide as your hips go high. Feel like you're pulling your inner thighs apart. You're pulling your butt cheeks apart and pressing your sit bones up towards the sky. Awesome. And then release the hands down, please. Go roll up the spine, one vertebra. Come all the way to stand. Good. Then bring your right knee up and towards your chest. If you have a block here, place your block alongside this. So do this first. If you have a block, place it to the baby toe side of your left foot. Yeah, it can be flat, doesn't need to be high. Good. And then bring your right knee up and towards your chest. So the block is on the baby toe edge of your left foot, right knee up and towards your chest. Good. Cross your right thigh over top of your left. So you're setting up for eagle pose. As you wrap the inner thigh and the outer shin, bend your left knee until your right toes find the block. Go. So you have something to post your foot against. Good. Doesn't have to be flat, just something to reference. Good. And then take your left arm over top of your right in front of your chest. Wrap the forearms. Good. And then practice here staying really low, dropping the pelvis lower because you have that extra reference underneath your foot. So not leaning forward more, but actually scooping into your low belly, lifting your hip points up and dropping your tail. So your butt's getting lower, thighs are getting more towards parallel to the floor, and squeeze those shins. Good. As you squeeze your shins here, try and pull your inner thigh apart. You can pull your butt cheeks apart. Yeah, in your minds, you're like, what the heck? But pull your butt cheeks apart. Good. Nice. Drop in one more breath. Drop low. You can drop the elbows to the knees if you want. Good. And then slowly release. Come all the way back out. Nice job. That felt pretty good, right? Sure. Place the block to the other side. So to the baby toe edge of your right foot. And then bring your left knee up and towards your chest. I like this way of doing eagle because it gets you out of the state of mind where you're worried about balancing and falling, right? That's the point, is that you can really get into the action of your legs. So squeeze that knee in, cross your left thigh on top of the right. So the inner thighs and the outer shins are finding connection. Then bend the right knee. So you're dropping low into that crossed legged chair position. Good. And then take the right arm on top of the left. Nice. And because your foot is finding the block, really focus on the squeeze of the leg. So you want to feel like that top knee is almost angling inward. But you really exaggerate that internal rotation. Nice, Larry. Good. And you're pressing your shins against each other. That's the squeeze. And then try and pull your butt cheeks apart. Pull your inner thighs apart. Good. And keep your hips nice and low, but lift your low belly, your hip points up off of your thighs. So you're really getting that feeling of the muscles that wrap around the back of your pelvis, your glutes. Big muscles are getting stretched. They have no choice because you're dropping so low, but lifting the front of the pelvis up. Good. One more breath. Go ahead, drop deeper. Maybe drop the elbows to the knees if you'd like. And then slowly come on out. Good. Unwind. Nice, you guys. Yeah, I like that, Mark. Fly away. Good. Beautiful. Inhale the arms up to the sky, please. Good. Exhale, bow forward. Take the hands down to the floor or to your blocks if you like having your block there. Step your right leg back behind you into a lunge, back knee off the floor. And then up on your fingertips, just up on your fingertips, right? Lift your chest up. Good. And press that back thigh up. So it's not a full high lunge, but it's an extension of your spine here. So I want you to really feel yourself pressing back into that back heel, pulling your left thigh crease because that's the leg that's in front of you. Pull it back. Good. And extend your heart forward. So from the top of your pelvis, try and extend forward and pull back on the hips, pull back on the legs. Good. Nice, you guys. You should be this engaged in every pose. Nice. Slowly release, please. Step back to downward facing dog. Good. And then take your right foot forward between the hands. Same position. So again, if reaching the floor here is difficult, use blocks underneath the hands so that you have room to lengthen your spine. Good. Doesn't matter how many blocks you need. If it gives you the space to find your whole spine, it's worth it. Good. So the back knee is lifted. Feel that feeling of the back of your pelvis pulling up towards the sky, but you're reaching through that back heel, pressing through the front heel and dragging back. Pull that right thigh crease back. Good. So the extended leg gets infinitely long, right? You're stretching through it. Your pelvis goes slightly higher. Your chest goes slightly higher. Good. Don't drop the head. Push through the crown of the head. Nice. Awesome, you guys. Stay really engaged. Front knee comes a little bit forward, a little bit more forward, Virginia. There you go. Good. One more breath, chest up. Nice. And then release, step back, downward facing dog. Good. Come forward to plank pose, upward push up. Lower down to your belly, slow. Good. Rise up, cobra, lift head, neck, and chest. Good. And then release back to your belly, please. Nice. So you can place a block here between your shins if you'd like, just so you have something to squeeze into and reference. So place a block there if you want it. If not, just keep your legs where they are, pressing down through the pressing down through the feet. Take your arms out in front of you, forward in front of you. Yep. So you're going to inhale, lift head, neck, and chest up into a Cobra Pose with no hands. So just the upper body lifts. This is where you keep your legs on the floor. The block can be handy. So lift the upper body and stay. And then like you're climbing a rope in front of you, you reach your right hand higher in front of you, grab that rope. Left hand reaches higher than your right. Grab that rope. Reach right hand higher than left. Good. Lifting left hand higher than right. So you're keeping yourself in that lifted cobra position, and then you're using the muscles of the back to reach higher and higher and higher. So it should actually feel like you're continuing to lift and lift and lift and lift. So keep taking those hands higher and higher and higher and higher. Couple more. Good. Lift a little bit more, Emily. So you're really lifting your back up like you're still trying to do cobra with no hands. So you're lifting up, lifting up, lifting up. It's going to feel like a ton of work. Try. Good. And then slowly release. Come on down. Good. Make a pillow with your hands. Rest or turn one cheek to the side. And we can't ignore that the pelvis needs to be an open base for seated meditation for long periods of time. But if the muscles of the back are also unavailable, tight or weak, then it doesn't matter how open our pelvis is, the back will collapse into the pelvis and the pelvis can't support the whole weight of the whole body. So strengthening the muscles of the back, super important for being able to sit or being able to stand, being able to really be present in your life. And the fuel of transformation, the vessel of transformation, is this body and this mind. And your soul is the energy that is enlivening. It's the energy as it's moving. So we call that the Shakti. The Shakti is the soul energy, the creative energy as it's moving. And when it's not moving, when it's in its perfect state of completeness and stillness, it's the same energy. It's just completely still and whole. We call that Shiva. Shiva and Shakti. Same energy. One is in stillness, the other is in motion. Both are you. Soul of the world and the movement of the world. Both are you. So can you be okay with that? Aware of that. That's the celebration of Shiva. Walk yourself back up, please. Press up to hands and knees. Do a little cat and cow from hands and knees. Good. So actually, again, the story is the reason Shiva takes the night off is it's his wedding night. He's marrying Parvati, who is Adi Shakti. She represents the Adi Shakti, the first, most primal energy of Shakti, the feminine movement of the world. And Shiva is Shiva, right? Always in that state of equanimity, always in the state of complete stillness and wholeness. So the marriage of Shiva and Shakti is that's what you're celebrating tonight. And recognizing that that's you. So stay awake to it. Good. And then come to stillness, please. Stretch your right arm out wide to the right. Slide that arm behind your left wrist. Right shoulder finds the floor. Turn your gaze. Walk the left arm forward towards straight. Thread the needle. Good. Press into your shins. Push your inner thighs wide. Good. And then bring yourself all the way back to center, please. Go the other way, taking the left arm out and wide. Slide behind your right wrist. Turn your gaze. Walk the right arm forward towards straight. Good. And walk yourself back up to center, please. Downward facing dog. Okay, right leg comes up and back, down dog split. Bring that knee forward and wide for pigeon. So the right knee goes towards the right wrist. Use blocks underneath your hands here because you're not coming forward, so you're staying upright. Good. So use blocks underneath the hands if you'd like, if the hands can't comfortably stay on the floor. Good. Flex that front foot a lot or keep the toe pointed, but push the front shin. Either way, you're pushing the shin into the floor. Good. And up on your fingertips, again, you're doing this squeezing action. So you're drawing the right hip crease back and wide as you pull that left hip crease forward. And then hands touching something. Make sure your hands are touching something. Tuck your back toes, lift your back knee up. There you go. And squeeze that right hip crease back and draw that left hip point forward. Good. And now try and pull your butt cheeks apart, backwards through that heel, just like you did in lunge. Good. So it's not enough to just be in pigeon and think that, oh, pigeon is going to open my hips. You got to work the muscles in pigeon sometimes. One more breath. Good. Drop that back knee back down to the floor. Nice. And then plant the hands, please. Go ahead, walk forward for a moment. You're just not staying for very long, but you can come forward. Good, give the back a moment to feel. It is nice to actually have the weight, to have the gravity help to feel those big muscles, again, stretching. But even here, can you push back through your seat? So you're not leaning forward into that front shin, but you're actually pushing back through your pelvis, pushing back through your sacrum. Good. Nice job. Walk yourself back up, please. Plant the hands, come back downward facing dog. You can come through down dog split if you'd like, so that you really release through that right leg. And then bring that foot back to the floor. Good. And then left leg comes up, coming to the other side. Good. Bring that knee forward and wide. Find pigeon on the second side. Blocks underneath the hands. Good. Making sure that your knee is wider than your front hip point, right? That's the thing. The angle of the shin doesn't matter as much, but the knee, if it's not wider than the front hip point, is you're not getting the rotation aspect of the pose. So make sure that your knee is wide enough to the left, that bony part in the front of your left side of your pelvis should be inside where the knee is. The knee should be wider. Good. Press into the front shin. Hands holding something, pressing into something. Good. Tuck your back toes, lift your back knee. Good. And draw your hip points, again, low belly up off of that front thigh as much as you can. So it's like you're angling the front of your pelvis forward, trying to find the lift of your chest. So you're getting your spine as vertical as it can go here. Navel in. Pressing through that front shin. Squeeze that left hip crease back, right hip spins forward. Beautiful. Good. And pigeon is one of those poses that said that we should hold it for longer because it allows for there to be more relaxing, releasing. But really use those muscles. And I promise they will let go much faster. Good. Drop that back knee back down to the floor, please. Go ahead. Walk yourself forward onto your elbows, blocks, whatever you'd like for a few breaths. Keep the angle of the pelvis where the right hip is spinning forward, left hip and belly pulls wide. Good. So remembering in Agnistambhasana, again, in any pose that is a big opener or it requires a lot of rotation or something like that, where there's a lot of sensation, is we tend to get stuck on just the point where we feel the sensation. So the sensation will become less in those areas if other areas are more open. So the front of the pelvis makes a difference in how your legs can rotate in or out. Lower back makes a difference. Middle back makes a difference. Hamstrings, quads. Don't blame your hips for being your hips. Right? Equanimity. I'm okay with this embodiment, knowing that it has its idiosyncrasies, its weirdness. Good. Walk yourself back up onto your hands, please. Lift that back knee, come back to downward facing dog. Beautiful. And then slide forward to plank pose, please. Lower down onto your belly. Good, rise up for Cobra one more time, just really stretching through the front of the legs. Focus here, not just on the back, but drag back on your hands and drag forward. So it's like you're stretching the length of your thighs. Imagine that you're stretching the length of your thighs in Cobra. Good. And then slowly release back onto your belly. Please flip over onto your backs. Yep. Good. Pull your right knee in towards your chest. Good. Take that knee wide towards your armpit, reaching for half happy baby. So the right hand comes inside the knee, reaching for the foot or the ankle or behind the thigh. Widen that knee so that is the widest part of your pose, and then angle your shin slightly towards the center of your body. So your knee pushes wide, inner thigh pushes wide, butt cheek pushes wide, but your shin angles in. Good. Both sides of your low back should be equal on the floor. So just because that right knee is bent, don't let yourself roll onto that right side of your sacrum. Good. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. One more deep breath in. And as you exhale, lift your shoulders up off the floor. Good. Maybe wrapping that right arm around your calf, doesn't matter, but just finding where you are lifting the upper body and drawing that knee wide. Good. Yeah, you got it, Lorraine. Nice. You got it, Joanne. Good. Nice, Mark. Nice, Sue. Nice, Sarah. And then slowly release, please. Good. Squeeze that right knee in towards your chest. Good. And then send the right leg down to the floor. Bring your left knee in. Good. Draw that knee wide. Reach for the ankle or inner or outer edge of the foot with the left hand. And again, let your knee be the widest part of your pose. So the knee goes wide, butt cheek goes wide, and the shin angles in. So again, this is you learning rotation, right? Good. As the thigh goes wide and the shin angles in, it keeps your knee at a better position. Allows for the thigh bone to actually find its place in the hip socket. Because it's a little ball in a cup, right? That's actually moving in there. So you have to find kind of like, you know, the clock. If the hands are between one number and another, you can imagine that it's not quite in a settled place. Your hip socket's a lot like that, right? Is that there's certain places where the rotation makes sense and places where it doesn't. So you're trying to find that with the, how do I move my knee wide, push my sit bone wide, and then angle my shin so that I find where there's freedom. I find where my leg fits in my hip socket. This is the key to hip opening, is understand how your leg rotates. Good. One more deep breath. And then exhaling, lifting the shoulders up off the floor, maybe wrapping that forearm around the calf muscle if that feels like a good solid placement, or just stay where you are, curling into the spine, pressing down through the back of your sacrum, letting that knee stay heavy. Good. Really good. Nice, Sue. Just really press through that right side of your sacrum as well so that you're not totally pressing into your right heel to do that work. Good. And then slowly release, you guys. Nice job. Squeeze that knee in towards your chest. Bring the right knee in as well, so both knees come in. Take your right thigh on top of your left, stacking the knees, separate your feet, reach for your ankles or your shins. Good. Flexing the feet. Again, if you've been in any class where I've been teaching a lot of deep hip opening, you'll hear me say that external rotation, which Agnistambhasana, pigeon, that's all externally rotating the hips. External rotation is really built upon internal rotation. So if you want your hips to be more flexible going outward, you need to work their flexibility going inward. This is inward rotation, this position. It's also very nice for your lower back. Switch your legs, please. Take the other leg on top. Good. I hope you're not too sad that I didn't do 1,000 squats in this class. I could have. But Agnistambhasana is much more about rotation. So understanding rotation is more important than just the poses that are already deep hip openers. right? Squat is a potentially deep hip opener. Good. Release the legs, squeeze the knees in. Go ahead, come into happy baby, squat on your back. Why not? Reach for your ankles or your feet. And as those knees go wide, you need to use your hands as anchors. So as you drag down on the hands, push your feet back into your hands. Good. So isometric, right? So the knees are not actually going to get any straighter by doing that. But by pushing through the feet, you feel the legs activate and maybe the knees even drop wider. Good. Nice. And then slowly release, please. Hugging the knees in towards your chest. Roll around on your spine just a little bit. Do a little circling of the knees if that feels good. And then you're bringing yourself up to sit. Okay. So here we go. Again, 1,000 other things we could have done to continue to open the hips, but I think we've done enough. So find a million props because you might want them. Begin, if you usually sit on a prop in a cross-legged seat or in Badakanasana or something like that, make sure you have a blanket underneath your seat. So start already in a position that gives your sacrum, that gives your low back the maximum amount of freedom. Good. And then you're bending the knees and you're going to place we're stacking right leg on top of left first, right? So your left shin is coming parallel to the top of your mat. I use that term loosely, parallel, right? Flexing the foot. And then you're stacking your right shin on top of that. So the ideal position is your ankle will be stacked on top of your knee. So it'll be ankle and knee on both sides. The other option, if that is not available, even with props, again, my suggestion is try to do it and then prop up the knee if necessary. So put blankets under there, put blocks under there, put whatever you need. If it still doesn't feel good on the knee or the hip, you move the knee wider. So that top knee goes a little wider out to the right. So your heel is going to be into your left knee crease. And again, you can prop. Good. So try to find one of those positions. So ideally you're stacking the legs this way, right? Ankle on top of knee, ankle to knee, or slightly wider so that your foot is into the knee crease. Yes, using props. So right leg stacked on top of left, flexing the feet. Good. Yeah, and I really want you to try and find it with props just because today is the day that we're focusing on this pose. Normally, I would say if this position really doesn't work, and this is still true even right now, then sit cross-legged, right shin in front of left, and flex the feet. But if you can find a position where you are in Agnistambhasana with props, go for that. Like I said, you might need 1,000. Keep the feet flexed. Yep, ankles in as neutral a line as possible. And then hands can either be right alongside you, or if this position is not too challenging for your knees or your pelvis, you can start to lean forward, forward fold. Good, keep the feet flexed. So there's never a point here in this pose where your feet are not flexed. And remember the idea, the attitude is to be where you are with sensation, with equanimity, which means you push nothing away, but you see the interconnectedness of sensation, emotion, thought. You feel that even in this moment that might be challenging, the soul is enlivening you. If you are in that forward fold, walk yourself back up to upright. Don't come out of the pose yet. Just find yourself sitting taller. Stretch your arms up to the sky. Good. And feel yourself pressing down into your sit bones, not into your knees, but pushing down into your sit bones and pulling up through the sides of your spine. Pull up, pull up, pull up. Good. And then let the legs stay where they are and just relax the hands down to the knees or the thighs. Thumb and first finger come to touch. Eyes closed. Imagining that this is your meditation posture. And just for a moment, you relax into yourself as though this is your moment of meditation. And that meditation can happen even if you're not fully comfortable, even if you're not fully settled. and let the eyes float open. Release the hands. Take that top leg, so the right knee, pull it wide to the side. So as you come out of the pose, pull that knee wide and then extend it forward, and take the left leg forward as well. So both legs come out. Give them a little bit of a shake. And then it's a nice in-between type of thing if you're doing a lot of hip opening, is to do a little hamstring stretch. So forward fold here. Good. Feet can be close together in line with the hips or wide, your choice. Good. That looks good, Mark. Nice, Emily. Awesome. And then slowly release, walk yourself back up. Good. Let's try the other side. So now you're stacking, same position, stacking the left leg on top of the right. Good. So again, I say parallel is the suggestion, but certainly whatever angle of the shins makes the most sense is the one that you do. So start with props underneath your seat. That's number one, going to make this possible. And then make sure, so Sarah, as you're starting, move that right knee wider than your hip point. There you go. And then start to stack the other leg where it goes on top of that. So instead of trying to bring everything in towards center, it's going to narrow everything. Start with a little wider base. You got it. Flexing the feet, using as many props as you need underneath knees if they are lifted. Nice. Flexing feet. And again, if the position truly does not work, honor that. Sit cross-legged with the left shin in front of the right. And it might have worked well or okay on one side and it is not working on the other. Respect that. Good. Either stay upright here, or if the knees and the hips allow, start to walk forward, forward, fold. This equanimity is not a state that is truly stopped or still, but it's being so unified with the flow of things that you don't even register it as motion. It's not disruptive at all. You're not in relationship with it. You simply are it. This is Shiva, the dancer who is dancing this crazy, wild, cosmic dance, but at the same time is completely at peace, that there's no separation. He is the dance and the dancer. Sometimes we say this is the beloved and the lover, right? And that you are both. The one that loves and the one that is loved. So this is what we practice, is dropping into that sensation of wholeness. We call that equanimity when we're not running away. We're so in the moment that we no longer feel that we're separate. We're simply here with everything else. Good. Walk yourself back up to upright, please. Stretching your arms up to the sky. So again, feeling the weight of the seat, and pull up through your spine as you push down into your sit bones. Again, you're not pushing through your knees. You're pushing down just into that bony part of your pelvis, and then pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up. You might even feel your knees squeezing up to help you lift. That's great. Good. And then stay nice and long in your spine. Relax the hands down to the knees or the thighs. Thumb and first finger come to touch. Meditate. And by meditate, I mean feel yourself right here. Whole and complete. There are no circumstances that can remove or alter that completeness. The Purna. This is Shiva, is constant awareness of that completeness. So he is never bothered. He gets irritated, but internally he is never disturbed. And slowly release the fingers, let the eyes open. Again, as you come out mindfully, drawing that left knee nice and wide and stretching both legs out in front of you. Good, give the legs a little bit of a shake. Take that forward fold. Again, legs can be wide or closer in line with the hips, whichever you prefer. A little wider leg might feel good. Beautiful. And then slowly walk yourself back up, please. Nice. Find your way onto your backs. Good. Gently. Don't throw yourself on the floor. Good. Drawing the knees in towards your chest. Squeeze in. And then scoot your hips over to the left. Drop your knees to the right. Good. Reaching out through that left arm, either back behind the shoulder or up alongside the ear. And then come back to center, bringing the knees back to center. Scoot your hips over to the right, drop your knees to the left, paying attention that your knees stay on top of each other and that your knees are in line with your hips or slightly higher. And then reaching back through the right arm, through the right shoulder, or up alongside the ear. Then come back to center, please. Squeezing the knees in. Extend the legs out in front of you. Settling for Shavasana. Very gently bring the awareness back to the breath. Letting the body begin to stretch, move, in whatever ways serve it well. You're going to draw the knees in towards the chest and roll to your right side. Taking a moment before you begin to push the floor away to come back to an upright seated position. Bring the hands together at the heart center, palm to palm, or any mudra that's been working well. The idea of the Agnistambhasana, the fire log, the fire, sacrificial fire, is transformation. And into what? right? It said that the offerings that we give become smoke. Our prayers are carried on that smoke to the divine. And from the divine, it's then given back to us in whatever form is necessary for it to be received. But so we take what is our gross experience of the world, our embodiment, and we offer it up to that inner transformation. And what does it become? It becomes awareness of your soul, awareness of the divine. And then that begins to come back to you in the dance of your life. It comes back to you in whatever form is necessary for you to stay in that connection to the soul. You see that everything is that soul operating, many bodies, many minds, many forms. So we celebrate this on Shivaratri as the energy of Shiva, is that we offer ourselves into that transformation. And Agnistambhasana is symbolic of that, right? The fire log, I offer myself into that transformative process so that I know my own soul, which means I can always be in equanimity and I can dance with this life instead of run through it. So celebrate it. However it feels that you want to celebrate it, do it. We'll close with the sound of Om, deep breath in. Sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Let tonight be the night or the day that you begin to feel that every particle of you becomes divine, because it is already. You just have to realize it. So happy Shivaratri and namaste. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week. Keep your, take a look at the website, email stuff that's coming up. Sarah and I are teaching a workshop on the 21st about opening the pelvis emotionally and physically. So check that out if you're interested. And then our teachers in training are running this Saturday from 10 to 2, bottled water and juice box drop.